What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're in like a different setting. It's really not the cutest. I'm changing things around in my office, which is the room I usually film my sit down videos in, but I don't have anywhere to like sit in here currently. I mean, I could sit at my desk, I guess, but not the cutest background. Not that this is either. Anyway, we're sitting on the floor in front of the closet in here, which is fine. It's just like, let's get personal today. That is the vibe. I really wanted to do a Q&A and just like sit and chat with you guys, but I feel like I didn't necessarily want to do one that was like a life update and just about stuff with me. I feel like I don't have that much going on right now. So I was like, what do I want to talk about? And I have gotten a lot of requests since a few months ago. I shared with you guys that I wanted to bring back these like sit down videos that I used to do and just like really open up and talk to you guys. And these are my favorite videos to film. I can talk about something that hopefully a lot of us can relate to, or I can help you guys out, or just like give you some insight on experiences that I've had. So definitely let me know if you like this video and if you want to see more like this, or if you have any topics. But today I'm gonna put on the screen like what I posted on my Instagram story. These are some of the topics I had in mind, and I had you guys submit your questions, any topics that you kind of wanted me to chat about today, and I got a lot of really good ones, so I'm very excited to just get into it. Some of these will be anonymous. I had people just say anonymous if they don't want me to reveal their username or whatever, so some of them it might look like it's from not a real person or something, but it's just because I'm not including certain usernames of people that didn't want me to. If you enjoy videos like this, like Q&As and sit down stuff that's like a little more personal and just more like one-on-one, let me know by liking this video, and I would love to make these more regularly for you guys. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Red flag if friends dislike your partner, question mark. You know, I'm hesitant to say this is 100% the truth, right? Like, of course, take anything I say as just my best formed opinion and my experiences. I don't know all the details here, of course, but I would say if your friends have met your partner a few times or more than a few times, like more than a handful of times, 3, 4, 5 plus times, and it's a general consensus that they dislike your partner, I do think that's a red flag. It would be for me personally. I feel like it's a lot for your friends to actually say that they dislike the person that you're with, rather than being like, I'm not sure yet, he needs to grow on me, he needs to like prove to me that he's good for you or whatever. I feel like it's a big step to actually be like, I don't like your partner, and to actually have like multiple of your friends say that to you. So I definitely would trust that if it's multiple people and they've met them more than, like I said, a handful of times. I personally would see that as a red flag. I think it also depends on how well your friends know you and how long they've been your friends. If these are friends you've had for a really long time and they really know you, I definitely would lean towards trusting them more. And I also think it's one of those things that like deep down you might know if this person is not the one for you, and just don't be delusional, okay? Like, because I've been there. Don't be off in Delulu land. We're gonna kind of talk about that a little more with some questions that I got, but like really don't just be thinking like, oh, with your head in the clouds, with only your heart. Like, I would say to trust your friends if they know you and they're good friends. That's how I feel. Okay, I really like this question, and I got a few like this, so I'm gonna put some of them on the screen just as I'm talking, but kind of the general question was how to navigate sharing costs if you move in with someone. Are there rules? Anonymous. Okay, this is something that I feel like is really important to talk about, and that maybe there isn't enough like what's the right things to do. And I do feel like I just want to start off by saying I think this situation is different for every couple, because people make different amounts of money, and people also have different ideas of like what they want their partner to contribute versus what they're going to contribute. So there's really no, like you said, I don't believe there are any rules, other than I think both people committing to do the most they are comfortable doing in terms of paying for rent, paying for things around the house that just have to be paid for, like I don't know, toilet paper and dish soap and food, like groceries and things like that. But if we're talking about like two people that are both working and both like committed to making the relationship work, that just needs to be like a really open conversation, and also like an ongoing conversation. Like maybe what you think going into moving together is gonna work. Like let's just say you're like, we're gonna split the rent 50-50. We're gonna split everything 50-50. Groceries, everything is just gonna be cut down the middle. Maybe that's something that switches up as you are like living together for longer, and maybe it's like not working, or maybe somebody loses their job and one other partner needs to like step up. You know what I mean? I think for Jared and I, we've had a little bit of things like shift around. For the most part, things have like leaned towards 50-50, but they're not 100%. Like for example, I do all the grocery shopping and I don't cut it 50-50 because a lot of the things I buy, Jared doesn't eat, drink, or use. Like if I buy 4 bottles of wine in my grocery shop, like I'm not gonna charge Jared half of that because he doesn't drink. So I actually like go through, and I mean, of course it can like take a little extra time, so maybe that like wouldn't work for another couple. So that's why I'm kind of saying it's like very personal to your situation. So for like our groceries, we'll do, you know, like whatever I'm just gonna use, and then what he's gonna use, I'll like take those things out, and then most things we do share, and that stuff will just be like cut 50-50. I'll Venmo request him. We were even doing it differently. Like when, I think for the first like year of us living together, I just had like a set amount that I would charge him monthly for groceries. And I ended up being like, I'm spending way more than this. So I thought that was like maybe what would work for a while, because I didn't want to add up every little thing. But I think once again, it's just like what works for you and what feels like the most doable and fair. And those are things that you're definitely gonna have to like check in with your partner on. As far as like big amounts like rent and maybe like furniture and things like that, of course, again, it depends, but I would say like if you're making similar amounts, I think splitting rent makes the most sense. If one person's making double the amount of what the other person is making, maybe that person who's making more money pays more in rent. And I think it would be good to come to a compromise that like both people feel comfortable with, and also like you could be open to changing that down the road if it doesn't feel fair anymore, and if it's not working. I think it's really important too to like check in with your partner and just be like, does this feel okay to you? Does this feel fair to you? And also things around the house too is another thing, like very similar to what I've already been talking about. You just want to like really be like, what feels like the things you want to do around the house, and the other person says maybe like, I want to do the dishes, or I want to like, you know, whatever it is, and you kind of like just talk about what is gonna work and what you're both gonna do, and like also keep checking in with that stuff. Like if one person's not doing what they said they were gonna do, you know, like a roommate situation, you gotta just like check in. I would say no, there's not rules. Definitely different things work for different people. Some people, you know, one person is gonna pay for everything, and maybe the other person's like the stay-at-home parent. So of course, like there's just different things that work for different people. I think just the biggest thing is like to check in. Like if you're wanting to buy a new couch or something and your partner's like, I like the couch we have now, fine, I don't think we need a new couch, then maybe that's something that you're like, if I really, really, really want a new couch, I need to like buy that on my own, or accept that we're gonna like keep the current couch, you know what I mean? So there's like definitely things that will come up like that. I feel like a lot of times women, or at least I, tend to like want to update things more, and some of that I definitely take on completely by myself, because I'm like, Jared doesn't want to do this. Jared doesn't, especially if it's like a room he literally doesn't use. Like my office, 100% of the cost of everything in my office are gonna be me, because that's my space. All right, next question. How to meet guys off of dating apps? Yes, I feel like this is such a good one, and something that a lot of us have related to, or like currently are like, how do we do this? Especially in this time where I honestly feel like every single year it just gets so much more like common to meet your partner on an app. I'm kind of in a weird boat because I've never met any of my long-term partners on a dating app. I've only had like 3 long-term partners, but never met any of them on the app. So maybe I do have good advice on this. And I would say the biggest thing that has worked for me, and I've seen work for my friends, is you have to put yourself out there, and you have to be saying yes to social situations if you're actively trying to date. Like, if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. If you need to take time off dating or you're not feeling inspired, okay, that's totally okay. Like, take that time. But if you're actively trying to meet people, I think really you have to just like say yes to those group hangs, to those going out with friends. Like, when a friend asks you to do something, a friend asks you to go out, like, and you're like, I don't know. Of course, if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. But like, that's the way that I met both of my past partners. If you don't want to meet someone on the apps, you like have to be out there in the wild, talking to people. And I found that like every time I did, for the most part, I had fun. Even if I didn't meet anyone, I like met a new friend, or I was like, you know, had like a fun one night. You know, I feel like it's just important to like really like dip your toes in or whatever, and just like say yes to going out to concerts or whatever it is that you and your friends like to go out and do. Say yes. I think that's my biggest advice, is like say yes to going out and doing the social things. Feel free to comment down below if you have any like cool advice as far as like how you met your partner, or how, if you have any advice that's like other than that of how you've met someone off dating apps. I think it would be interesting for other people to hear, and maybe we could create kind of like a dialogue down below, because that's kind of the only experiences I've had. Mutual friends, I feel like, is the biggest way I hear of other people meeting their partner that's not on the apps. Mutual friends, that's happened for me. So just put yourself out there. I know some people, it's like sometimes you just don't want to put yourself out there, but it is one of those things, like with dating, you kind of have to, right? Like, you're either putting yourself out there on the apps or you're putting yourself out there in real life. How to not compare your relationship to others, especially loved ones and BFFs. Okay, I think this is a really good one, and I think probably a lot of people experience this. First thing is like timing. People have different timelines for what works for them in a relationship. Like, some people want to date for 5 years before they would even consider a proposal, and that's just something that is like, oh my gosh, it like felt way too soon if it was any sooner than that. Some people might date for 6 months or a year and be like, I feel completely ready for a proposal. So just like timelines in that sense can be very different if who you're comparing yourself to is in a completely different stage of life. That's another thing to just be conscious of, is like, maybe you're comparing yourself to people who are like, they already bought a house and they already are like ready to have kids and all that stuff, and you're like, oh, do I even want those things? Like, so don't be comparing yourself to situations that like you're not currently in. Of course, it's one thing if it's like your friends that are literally your same age, and maybe you guys have been dating a similar time, and it's just like, you know, things feel a little bit like maybe your relationship is moving slower, or maybe you're just like, I feel like their relationship is so good and they're like so obsessed with each other. I think another thing is just, you never know, and I know this from firsthand experience of being in a bad relationship, is like, you never know what goes on behind closed doors. You never know how it is when it's just those two people, and sometimes things are put on for show. Like, of course, people are typically going to be on their best behavior and like, you know, on their, like, hopefully they're not like fighting in public, right? But you never know what the relationship is really like. And I don't say that in this like dark way necessarily. I'm just saying, like, it's kind of like the social media comparison thing. Like, everybody puts their highlights out, and I think that's something we have to think about with relationships and dating too, is that why would, you know, a couple is not going to post a screaming fight of them on Instagram, but they're going to post like, happy 2-year anniversary, babe, I love you so much, with like cute photos. You know, it's like, just keep that stuff in mind, is like, there probably is more beneath the surface. I think it's one of those things that is easier said than done, especially if you feel like you're just kind of struggling, or you're like the single friend. Different timelines work for different people. Sometimes people want to like settle down or just like get more serious a lot quicker than others, and we have to also remind ourselves of just like different life stages. People are different ages, and try to just be like, okay, this is, you know, the stage that I'm in, and it doesn't mean that I'm not as happy as my friend who's like, I don't know, maybe like engaged or about to get married or on their honeymoon or whatever, just because like I'm not at that place yet. Okay, I love this question. Tips for dating intentionally and avoiding hookup / friends with benefits situations. In my experience, I think this gets a little bit easier as you get older. I'm not sure how old you are, but I found this was like such a bigger thing, like in college or in my early 20s. I found that it was easier to find that as I got to my like mid and late 20s. So that stuff of course can happen at any life stage and any age. But I think the biggest thing that I would do and that I have done is be like upfront as early on as you can. Honestly, like I'm not saying necessarily first date, but maybe if you do feel that like spark with someone on the first date and you're like, oh my gosh, like I could really see this. Of course it's only the first date, but maybe if you're feeling that way, you're feeling really good on like a first or a second date, I would put it out there. I think I would frame it as, I'm not really looking for casual dating right now. I'm not really looking for like hooking up. I'm trying to find something more serious. I'm looking for a relationship. I'm dating for a relationship. You can even go as far as saying like, I'm dating to get married. Like that is my intention, and I know it might be a little early to say that, but I just want you to know that like from the beginning. I think that is perfect to say. Maybe if you're having 2-3 dates with this person, I would bring it up by that point, by date like 2 or 3, especially if they haven't voiced that for themselves yet. Like if you're kind of getting the vibe that like this person maybe isn't looking for something that serious, I think I would say it earlier on, just so you're not wasting your time. Of course it's hard on the apps, but I know on Hinge you can say like looking for marriage or like not, or things like that, like open to kids. So try to be really upfront with what you're looking for. I would even put it in my little bio, honestly. Maybe just like not looking for casual dating or like one night stands or friends with benefits. Like I would even put that out there just because those people aren't going to match with you. And then you're gonna have a smaller pool, which is actually a good thing because you're not gonna have people that you're like wondering about. I think a lot of people really respect that. It might sound like weird or scary to do, but I think a lot of people really are actually like susceptible to that. And at least you know, like if someone's like, whoa, like they're taken totally aback by you saying that, I don't think that's the person that you're looking for, because the person that you're looking for is also someone that's like looking for love. They're looking for a relationship. Okay, I got a couple questions that were pretty similar that I wanted to touch on. The first one is going from an unhealthy relationship to a healthy one and unlearning the trauma. And this one says, healing after a bad relationship or traumatic romantic life, if you feel okay with that. I wanted to touch on both of these things because I definitely feel like this is something I get asked about the most. And I did want to go ahead and shout out my video I've made on this, healing after a toxic relationship. I'm gonna link it as a card up here in case anyone missed it. I published it like 1.5 years ago, so I know I have like some new viewers since then. Maybe you just missed it. So that video, like I would just say, is like the #1 thing I would recommend. Like if anyone has a similar experience to this or like is going through something like this, I feel like I really talked about everything. But as far as how I would like summarize it, and like learning to heal and be in a healthy relationship after having a traumatic relationship, like wondering, I don't know, like, is this normal? Is this like how it's supposed to feel? Because it doesn't feel like this, it feels like this. And that's something I kind of struggled with, is like, I don't know, just being like, is normal and calm, like I knew it was like good, but it was just honestly like even a little weird to get used to that, being in a relationship where there wasn't yelling and fighting and storming off and locking myself in my room in the bathroom to cry, like not having any of that anymore and just being like, whoa. It was so nice. Like it honestly like was and is extremely amazing, but it definitely took some getting used to because I was in a relationship for like almost 3 years that was just very not like that and very up and down. So I feel like that is kind of something that is an adjustment. I think one of my biggest things I would say that, like, I know no one really wants to hear this, but you need time to heal. And I feel like I've been healing in my current relationship, and it took, like, I wasn't necessarily healed by the time I met Jared, and I did wait a bit before meeting Jared and dating him, before like saying, okay, we're gonna be together. I knew I wanted to, but I was like, what's the point in rushing it? Like, he said he's gonna be here. So, you know, just waiting that bit of time to like really make sure that I wanted to make that commitment. And I think, yeah, the biggest thing you can do is just like take time to be alone, take time to heal. Again, I talk about all those things in that video. Really separating yourself from that person as much as possible. If you are still in communication with that person, I think that's going to really prevent your healing. So that's another thing I touch on in that video. But time, I think, is the biggest thing. And also, like, as I said, I don't know if you'll ever feel 100% healed, and that's okay. You know, of course, if you need to seek like therapy, or if you feel like this is something that really, like, yeah, if you need to talk to someone, I say 100% do that. I think taking time for yourself is the biggest thing. I took time off of dating where I was just like, oh my God, I can't even think about it. I feel like you definitely need that time. And then, you know, when you do feel like, okay, I want to maybe put myself back on the apps or whatever it is, you'll feel when it's right. Don't rush it. And just as far as you said, like unlearning the trauma, yeah, I think that's something that I've been kind of experiencing for literally years after being, like multiple years after being and ending a toxic cycle. It's just something that slowly, honestly, slowly your brain will like readjust to the normal and the more calm, and it takes time, but it will absolutely happen. And hopefully it will be something that, for me, I try to look at that as like my past, toxic relationship experience. I try to look at that as something that I don't regret, because it taught me so much. And not that I feel like you have to have an experience like that. I don't believe that at all to like be happy in your current. That's not exactly what I'm trying to say, but it's more just, I am glad I had that experience. And I don't, as much as I'm like, I feel so disconnected from that and that, like all of that, I don't want to go into it too much, but I still don't think I regret it, because it taught me everything, what I have now and how far I've come. And I feel like I know myself a lot better too after going through something like that. So hopefully it can be something that you look back on and you're like, I'm actually glad I went through that. Or maybe just like you can kind of honor the healing that needed to take place for you. How to keep the spark alive in a long-term relationship. I got actually a bunch of those too. Lots of people asking that, and yes, this is totally something that I definitely feel, and it is something, Squirtle's here, I don't know if you can hear him licking me. It's something that does have to be actively worked on, and I think it's something that, once again, like I said at the beginning of this video, you just need to be like checking in with your partner on things like this, you know, because I have had, you know, that experience where I'm like, maybe I'm just like feeling this way, and I'm like wondering if they're feeling this way, and it's like, I just need to express it, you know, I just need to say like, hey, I feel like we haven't been connecting that much recently, and we've been like super in our routines, and I just want to like carve out some more intentional time with you. And I think that's a really great way to frame it, and that's how I typically have like tried to frame it with Jared, and I've always had like a really, you know, he's always been like super receptive to that. So I think that's a great way to like open it up, and just to kind of put some things out on the table like that both people want to do more of, to like feel that spark. Whether it's like, okay, hey, we're setting up a weekly date night, like our date night is Friday, or our date night is Tuesday, or something, like whatever works for you. Jared and I do like, I would say Jared and I do like 2 date nights a month, but that doesn't mean you can't do stuff in the house too. Like you can have an in-house cute date night, playing a little like quiz together, or question game together, or like a game night or something that you are kind of like talking one-on-one. I think just like really, you know, even if it is only like twice a month or something, just like setting up those date nights, and then other things besides that, like, hey, like let's carve out this hour before bed every night, or it doesn't have to be every night, it could even be like once or twice a week. Like, you know, people are busy, but carving out this time where we're like just going to like cuddle and like talk in bed, and we're not gonna like be on our phones. So I think it's really important to just like, because I totally feel that, like, you know, it just gets like routine, and you have to actually like actively be trying to do things that, you know, get you out of your routine. And I think almost everybody, if not everybody who lives together, is a long-term partner, is married, will feel this. So common. I feel like almost everyone will experience this. Like, okay, you know, things are routine. How do we, you know, create that spark? So I think having both partners like express to them maybe what makes them feel the most connected to the other person. I think getting that out there, because people have different love languages. So maybe one person wants to like be more physically intimate. Maybe the other person just wants to like have more like one-on-one like talking time, or like, yeah, have more date nights or something like that. So if both people can express that, and then you can find ways to like, okay, this is how we're going to honor what you want to do more. This is how we're going to honor what I want to do more. And once again, just having that like back and forth communication, and your partner can't read your mind. And it is really important to voice those things, because maybe they're feeling the exact same way. And I think it's just good to get it out there. Feel free to comment down below your favorite ideas for keeping the spark alive and switching up the routines, things that have worked for you, or just any ideas you have as well. This is a similar topic to what we talked about earlier, so I'll try to keep it quick. But how do you know when it's the right time to move in with someone? I was actually just talking to someone about this last week. I think you genuinely will feel inside if it feels rushed, if it feels too fast. Also, I think another thing is like, if you weren't already planning on bringing it up yourself, like maybe your partner is like, hey, like, do you want to move in together soon? And like, if you're taken aback at all by that, you're like, oh, I just like hadn't really thought that much about that yet. I would personally say like maybe it's a little too soon. Like, I think that both people ideally have thought about it a little on their own, and then they come to each other, and of course one person's probably just gonna bring it up first, but like maybe the other person's like, yeah, I've been like kind of thinking about that, like, you know, discussing how it's gonna work with your current leases, or who's gonna move in with who, or if you're gonna like look for a place together. I think all that stuff is like, you know, of course stuff you'll talk about. I think if it feels shocking, and if it feels like, oh, like I hadn't thought of that, I think maybe that might be a little too soon. Not to say that it's bad, but there's no specific like perfect timeline for me and Jared. Granted, this is the only time I've ever lived with a partner. We did right around a year. It was like 2 weeks after our 1-year anniversary that we ended up moving in together, but we had started discussing it, I think around like 9 months of dating or something like that. And I was kind of in a situation where I was like on a month-to-month lease, and his situation was also like he could kind of like leave at any time where he was living. So I just was kind of like, hey, like I don't feel like this needs to happen next month, but like when I move out of this place and you move out of that place, like maybe we could live together. I'm pretty sure I was like the one that brought it up, but he was kind of like, I've been thinking the same thing. Like it was just mutual, like that makes sense. Sometimes you might have to wait for someone's lease to be up or something like that. But I think genuinely, like if it makes you feel like excited inside and something that you're like, I really feel like this could work, and you're not too nervous about it, then I think that's probably a good sign. You know, if you're feeling like maybe the relationship's already a little rocky, maybe you guys aren't in the best place, maybe you guys are like fighting kind of often and you're not like sure about it, I would say don't do it. Because moving in, honestly, like I'm just gonna say it, I've never been married, but I would assume it's a lot like marriage, because literally what is gonna be the difference between Jared and I getting married and living together versus now? The only difference is gonna be that we had a wedding and that we have that higher level of commitment. But like we live together like a married couple lives together. So that is going to be like a marriage trial test, honestly. It's definitely going to show you if you want to be with this person long term, I think. And challenges and also very exciting things will come from that. I just have a few more. I'm going to try to go through them a little bit quick, just because I know I've been chatty. How to know if you're in a toxic relationship. Speaking from my experience, I knew I got to a place where I would even just start saying it out loud. I was like, I feel like this is toxic. This is a toxic cycle. I also like on my own time would like look up symptoms of a toxic relationship. I don't know if symptoms is the right word, but you know what I mean? Like I would literally like research, how do you know if your relationship's toxic? I would like watch YouTube videos of like how to know if you're in a toxic relationship and leave. Like I was actively doing this stuff on my own time, and I don't remember how soon or long into my relationship I started doing that, and like I actually started saying that out loud, but I knew it. Like I knew it deep down, and it's okay that I didn't end it 100% the second I, you know, felt like it was toxic. Most people don't. I will say, in case you haven't watched or you haven't watched it in a while, because it's like 3 years old at this point, my video that was my toxic relationship plus how I left, I will link it up here as well. Please go watch it, because I did talk about in that video how I came to that realization, what I saw that was toxic. Toxic is a big word. A lot of people like to throw that word around nowadays. I totally get it, but you know, I think the biggest thing is like healthy or unhealthy. Like, does your relationship feel healthy and supportive? And of course, like it can feel that way sometimes, even if you're in a toxic, unhealthy relationship. But I think deep down at your core, you know, and I hate to say it, but if you're asking this question, I think that might kind of be a sign, like it probably is. If you're asking that, I think you probably already know deep down. So really be honest with yourself and don't try to sugarcoat it. You know, does this person make you feel happy and supported and loved and like this is the person that you could be with forever? Or is it something that is difficult and it feels like you're pulling this way and they're pulling that way and they don't support you always, and weird things come up that, you know, jealousy and just butting heads and stuff that doesn't feel productive, it doesn't feel loving. Okay, last question. I thought this one was really good and maybe a good way to end it off. Doyle said, should I be looking or not looking? In quotes, it's when I stopped looking that love showed up. Thoughts? I thought this one was so interesting because I feel like everyone does say that, and I also had that experience, at least, yeah, honestly, with like, well, specifically with Jared, I would say. I didn't feel like I was looking. I actually felt like I was kind of in a place where I was a little frustrated with dating, and I was just kind of like, whatever happens, happens. I don't know. But I also don't feel like I was closed off at all. So I think it's one of those things that you don't want to be like, no, I'm not trying at all, and I'm like not open to meeting anyone. You know, of course you don't want to be closed off, but I do think it's one of those things that might have some truth to it, which is hard because like obviously when you're trying to meet someone, you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Just not date? Like, how am I gonna ever meet someone if I'm not putting myself out there? So I still 100% stand behind the advice I gave in the beginning of this video as far as like putting yourself out there, that you have to do that. But I will say sometimes we're putting so much energy into dating and it's not giving us much in return, and sometimes it's just like frustrating, or you're like having a bad, you know, few dates or something like that. I don't know why I like didn't see this question, but let's tie this one in here. I was about to say, I feel like there was a question about this. How to get motivated after so many bad first dates and endless swiping. Okay, so I feel like this does actually like tie in with what I want to say. I think that sometimes you actually have to check in with like, how much energy am I putting into dating and what am I getting in return? And I think sometimes you do have to like take a step back and like take a break if it is really not fulfilling, if it's just really frustrating. I think sometimes like if you have been really putting yourself out there for a while and it's just not, it's been frustrating for a really long time, I think maybe it is good to take a few months off. Like maybe delete your apps for a few months, I don't know, 2-3 months or something like that, and just try to focus that energy and that time that you were putting into the apps and swiping and chatting with people and going on to dates, put that all into yourself and just be like, I'm on a break. I'm focusing on me. I think sometimes we just have to do that, and who knows, maybe that would be the time where you met someone when you really weren't out there swiping. Of course, I think it's something that in general, you know, yes, you need to be, once again, putting yourself out there. You don't have to be on dating apps. If sometimes dating apps are just not, like, I know a lot of people, most people don't like them, but it's kind of one of those things. It's like, well, you kind of like have to be on them if you want to be meeting people. But if it's really something that is like more frustrating, not fulfilling at all, I would say get rid of them and just try to focus on either, you know, focusing on yourself and like saying, I still think you should say yes to social situations and people asking you to do stuff, because you never know who you might meet. You never know what could happen, or you never know what friend you could meet that could maybe eventually, like, who knows, 6 months later be like, I just thought of someone that you would be great to, you know, meet. To answer the question of like, should I be trying or not trying? Should I be putting myself out there or not? I think it's kind of like not the best answer, and I'd be interested how you guys feel about this, but I don't think you should completely like stop dating and give up. You know, like I already said, you know, I still think you should be out there, but I do think if you are feeling frustrated with the apps and just dating in general, to take some time off. Even if nothing happens during that time other than you just focusing on yourself, which is so great, that can lead to the best things. Even if nothing like happens, like you don't meet anyone, at least you're gonna be like re-energized, reinvigorated to like get back out there, whether it is downloading the apps again or just like getting back out there in the wild. I've never personally had any great luck from dating apps. That's just my particular experience. I've never dated anyone long term that I've met on an app, and I have actually had mostly frustrating situations. I think they have their time and place. I mean, one thing you could do is like switch up the apps that you're using, switch up your photos, give your profile like a complete makeover, a boost, see if that does anything for you. If not, maybe it's time to just like say goodbye to the apps. All right, guys, I just filmed for like about an hour, so this is gonna be a lot of footage to go through, but I love these long chatty videos where we're just talking about a topic like this. I really enjoy doing this. Hope you guys are enjoying the switch up of like the vlogs and other types of videos this year. I'm gonna continue to bring you both. Let me know what your favorite videos to see from me are. I know I already said this, but give this video a like if you enjoyed it. It really helps me out. It's completely free to do. It just helps me to know that you guys enjoyed it and that you guys want to see more of this if you do. As always, feel free to check out my Patreon. That is where I have my content, my mini podcasts, unseen photos, and videos that I don't post on YouTube that are more juicy, more personal. They're just for Patreon. I'll have that linked on the screen right now if any of you guys want to check it out. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye.
Every time we talk, I gotta walk away.